I was happy to stay around, but they wanted to go straight on to tour, and I wanted to get married and have kids, and it was like that timing was not right for me. But we decide which is right and which is an illusion.
In an era of noise and spectacle, where rock seemed to need to scream in order to survive, Mike Pinder chose a path entirely his own. He sat quietly behind a Mellotron, immersed in sonic waves that felt as though they were echoing from the cosmos, and let the music speak for itself. As one of the founding members of the Moody Blues, Mike wasn't just the man who brought that strange instrument into rock. He was the one who made it the soul of a generation, opening the door for the entire realm of progressive and symphonic rock. Pinder was never the name splashed across headlines or paraded through flashy interviews. But every time he sang, on tracks like Melancholy Man or The Sunset, you didn't just hear a melody. You felt a soul whispering about life, time, and existence. In a rock world swept up by war, drugs, politics, and rebellion, Mike Pinder chose reflection. He believed music could heal, and he stayed faithful to that belief until the end. Yet behind that calm exterior, behind the almost monk-like serenity, lay no small share of inner conflict. Pinder was once the creative core of the Moody Blues, but he was also the first to walk away when tensions over musical direction and personal values reached their peak. He later sued his former bandmates, not out of greed, but out of a yearning for recognition, fairness, and to be remembered as an essential part of the Moody Blues' legacy. Mike Pinder passed away quietly in 2024, just as he had lived. No grand funeral, no flowery obituaries, but in the hearts of those who once heard him play, who once let their souls drift through the strange, beautiful harmonies he created, Mike Pinder never really left. He simply returned to the source of sound, where silence is the music. Early life. Michael Thomas Pinder, the name that would one day become synonymous with some of the most otherworldly sounds in rock history, was born on December 27, 1941, in Erdington, a working-class suburb of Birmingham, England. It wasn't a place of artistic dreams or stage lights. It was a place of air raid sirens, blackouts, and wartime austerity, where Britain was bracing itself under the brutal blitz of German bombings. Mike grew up among dust-covered walls and nights without electricity, where the rare sound of a piano on the radio could make an entire street fall silent. His family belonged to the traditional working class. His father worked in engineering, and his mother was a homemaker. They couldn't afford a formal arts education, nor did they know how to nurture musical talent. But they gave him something far more valuable: silence and space. In that environment, young Mike was free to listen. He once said that his earliest memories weren't visual, but sonic. Footsteps echoing down alleyways, the ticking of a clock, the soft drip of leaking water. He didn't just hear with his ears. He felt sound with his entire being. That sensitivity would later become the bedrock of his extraordinary auditory intuition. In school, Mike didn't stand out academically, but teachers remembered a quiet, dreamy boy with an uncanny musical gift. He taught himself piano on the worn-out keys at school and spent much of his free time in churches, not to pray, but to lose himself in the resonant swell of the organ. It was there he first experienced what he would later call spiritual music. Music not for entertainment, but for touching the deeper layers of the human soul. The turning point came after high school, when he got a job at Streetly Electronics, the very company that built the Mellotron, a bizarre electromechanical instrument capable of playing recorded orchestral tapes. Most employees saw it as machinery. Mike saw it as something alive. He tore it apart, studied its gears and reels, and began to imagine the emotional possibilities it could unlock in the hands of a true artist. It was in that modest little factory, not at a prestigious conservatory, where Mike Pinder learned something most musicians never do. That sound is mechanical, but emotion is the fuel. And from that seemingly unremarkable beginning, a quiet musical revolution had already begun. Early career. In 1964, amid the worldwide wave of the British invasion, 22-year-old Mike Pinder, made a quiet but pivotal decision. He stepped away from the Mellotron workshop to pursue a professional music career. Alongside his close friend Ray Thomas, he co-founded the Moody Blues, initially following the popular trends of the time, R&B, soul, and rock and roll. They brought in Denny Lane, lead vocals, guitar, Graham Edge, drums, and Clint Warwick, bass, and soon signed with Decca Records. The band quickly found unexpected success with Go Now, a soulful American cover delivered through Lane's aching vocals and anchored by Pinder's haunting organ work. The single soared to #1 in the UK and gained traction in the US, earning the Moody Blues a spot touring with the Beatles and other top acts of the era. But for Pinder, that glory felt hollow. While many of his peers chased trends and stage lights, Pinder felt suffocated. He wasn't merely a performer. He was a man who saw sound as a sacred language. He believed rock could be a vessel for spiritual transmission, if only it could break free from commercial formulas. Driven by this conviction, he began searching for a new direction for the band, even as it teetered on the edge of collapse following the departure of Lane and Warwick in 1966. With the band on the verge of disbanding, Pinder refused to let go. He reached out to Justin Hayward, a young guitarist and songwriter freshly split from Marty Wilde's band, and reconnected with John Lodge, a friend from school days. With this new lineup, Pinder seized the moment to reshape the band's entire sound. He introduced the Mellotron, an unwieldy, misunderstood instrument many musicians had rejected, and began composing songs like The Sunset and Dawn is a Feeling by combining keyboard melodies with orchestral tape loops. But Pinder didn't just play the Mellotron, he transformed it into a living orchestra. Strings, flutes, brass, choral textures, he programmed them all, conducting like a one-man symphony. No one understood the Mellotron's capabilities like he did, because he had built them, knew every reel, every limitation. That knowledge allowed him to do what no one else dared, bring a full symphony to the stage with only 2 hands. Pinder was also the one who introduced the Mellotron to the Beatles. During a meeting with Paul McCartney at Decca's studio, he demonstrated the instrument's eerie possibilities. It was that encounter that inspired the legendary Mellotron intro on Strawberry Fields Forever, marking the instrument's entrance into psychedelic iconography. By 1967, the Moody Blues had entered a new era, an era of concept albums and metaphysical questions about time, life, and death. Pinder was no longer just a musician, he was the band's spiritual guide, sound engineer, producer, and visionary. Fellow bandmates like Hayward and Lodge later admitted, without Mike Pinder, there would be no Moody Blues as we know them. He was the quiet architect behind revolutionary albums like Days of Future Past, 1967, the first rock album to integrate a full orchestra into a continuous musical narrative, launching an entirely new chapter in modern rock. From that moment on, Mike Pinder was no longer simply a keyboardist. He was a sound architect, career success. When Days of Future Past was released at the end of 1967, few could have guessed it would become one of the most pivotal albums in rock history, and even fewer realized that the true soul behind it wasn't the frontman with the mic, but Mike Pinder. It was Pinder who convinced Decca Records, originally only interested in a promotional record to showcase their new stereo technology, that the Moody Blues could create a full-fledged work of art, a sonic journey tracing one day from dawn to dusk, blending a full symphony orchestra with cutting-edge electronic instrumentation. The result was a groundbreaking masterpiece with tracks like Tuesday Afternoon and especially Nights in White Satin becoming global icons. Throughout the band's golden era from 1967 to 1972, Mike Pinder served as the spiritual compass of the Moody Blues. He didn't write as many hits as Justin Hayward, nor was he as flamboyant on stage as Ray Thomas, but every song he touched bore a distinctive signature, meditative, profound, and introspective. Tracks like The Sunset Out and In, Melancholy Man, and Have You Heard were quiet whispers from an inner world few rock artists dared to explore. To Pinder, music wasn't for agitation. It was a bridge between human consciousness and something sacred, something he called the universal mind. Follow-up albums like In Search of the Lost Chord, 1968, On the Threshold of a Dream, 1969, To Our Children's Children's Children, 1969, A Question of Balance, 1970, and Every Good Boy Deserves Favor, 1971, all bore his unmistakable touch. From Zen-like spoken intros to philosophical soliloquies, from cosmic Mellotron arrangements to lyrical meditations on rebirth, time, and enlightenment, each album was, in many ways, Pinder's spiritual canvas. Even high-energy rockers like Ride My Seesaw carried hidden layers of sonic sophistication thanks to his electronic detailing. In 1972, as the band paused after their astonishing run of albums, Pinder began recording his first solo work, The Promise. Here, he stepped away from traditional rock structures and delved into meditative soundscapes, touching on spiritual awakening, personal journeys, and cosmic unity. It wasn't a commercial album, nor was it meant to be. For Pinder, it was a vow, as the title suggests, to remain true to music as a mission, not a profession. He returned briefly in 1978 for the Moody Blues octave, but something had changed. The band, that once united under artistic vision, was now wrestling with creative disagreements, commercial pressure, and record label expectations. Ever the inward-facing idealist, Pinder felt the disconnect. After completing his recording parts for Octave, he declined to join the tour, citing a desire to stay in California with his family. But beneath that reason lay a quiet fracture, a dreamer stepping away from a stage that no longer served the original dream. And so, Mike Pinder left the Moody Blues while the spotlight still shone. No scandals, no bitterness, just a man who had given everything of essence and chose to walk away once he no longer belonged. Yet the music he left behind, the harmonies he crafted, the metaphysical spirit he embedded in rock continues to echo, like a silent hymn in a world far too loud. Personal life. After leaving the Moody Blues in 1978, Mike Pinder didn't launch a solo tour, nor did he chase the spotlight to keep his name alive. Instead, he quietly withdrew to Northern California, settling with his wife and children in a home tucked among the trees, where the only sounds he truly needed weren't applause, but wind through the pines and children's laughter under the porch. For Pinder, art had always begun with stillness, and he chose to live exactly like the music he once created. He married Tara Lee, a woman outside the entertainment industry, but deeply aligned with his spiritual beliefs and quiet way of life. They had 3 children, and in his rare interviews, Mike often spoke of them as the greatest reason he never returned to touring. "I once left everything behind to find inspiration," he said, "but later I realized the greatest inspiration was family." Yet even within that stillness, he wasn't immune to upheaval. In the early 1990s, a wave of re-releases from the Moody Blues' early albums generated significant revenue. Pinder, whose creative contributions defined those formative records, discovered he hadn't been informed or compensated like the others. There was no tabloid drama, no headlines. Quietly, he filed a lawsuit in Los Angeles in 1994, accusing his former bandmates of intentionally excluding him from financial and copyright agreements. The case never became a public spectacle. According to multiple sources, the matter was resolved privately after a brief period. But for someone who had always believed in friendship and pure artistry, the betrayal left a wound that never truly healed. After that, Mike Pinder disappeared from the public eye. No new musical ventures, no reunion appearances, no nostalgia tours. He lived as if everything had closed, except for the music, which still played quietly in his home studio each night. Though he stopped performing publicly, Pinder never stopped composing or recording, not for release, but to preserve his inner flame. In 1995, he released A Planet with One Mind, a semi-autobiographical project blending meditative sounds, nature recordings, and messages of spiritual awakening. It never charted, but many listeners described it as a healing experience in musical form. It was the last time Mike Pinder truly spoke to the world, not through interviews, but through music. Throughout his life, he remained untouched by scandal. No affairs, no addictions, no political controversy. A rarity for any rock musician from the 1960s or 70s. But his greatest heartbreak came not from public chaos, but from the place he once gave his whole heart, the band, the friendship, the memory. They had once been his family, and also his deepest wound. Mike Pinder understood something few artists dare to say aloud. Sometimes the most painful thing isn't being betrayed by the world. It's when the ones who once walked beside you choose to keep walking without you. Legacy and influence. In the history of rock, some artists defined eras through screams, blazing stages, and unmissable presence. Mike Pinder was not one of them. He didn't deliver transcontinental hits or lead sold-out tours. Instead, he left behind a quiet but profound legacy, one that changed how music was heard, composed, and felt. Pinder was among the first to bring the Mellotron into popular music, transforming it from a clunky studio experiment into a genuine creative instrument. Before him, the Mellotron was considered unwieldy and unreliable, unsuitable for the stage. But Pinder, who had once worked in the very factory that produced it, understood its inner mechanics intimately and unlocked its full emotional potential. Strings, choirs, flutes, he used it to build virtual orchestras in a way no one had imagined before. Thanks to Mike, the Moody Blues developed their signature symphonic sound. And thanks to him, artists like the Beatles, Genesis, King Crimson, Yes, Tangerine Dream, and many more dared to embrace the Mellotron to expand the boundaries of rock. They pushed beyond the four-chord formula, venturing into the realms of meditation, metaphysics, and cosmology. Some critics have even called him the silent father of progressive rock, as his sonic vision and songwriting philosophy laid the foundation for an entire genre that flourished through the 1970s and beyond. But his influence wasn't just technical, it was spiritual. Pinder left his mark through the depth of his lyrics and melodies. He didn't write to tell love stories, he wrote to ask why we exist. Melancholy Man is a confession of loneliness in the modern world. The Sunset is a prayer in the form of sound. Have You Heard is a question pointed at the universal mind, at that which lies beyond language and science. While other bands of the 60s sang of sex and protest, Pinder sang of soul, harmony, and the deeper origins of humanity. That's why his listeners, though quiet, have always been fiercely loyal. In 2018, when the Moody Blues were finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Mike Pinder did not attend the ceremony. But the remaining members, especially Justin Hayward, paused in solemn respect to acknowledge the man who had laid the foundation. If not for Mike, Hayward said, there would be no Moody Blues as people know them today. It was a belated recognition, but an honest one, from those who had walked the road with him. And even after decades in seclusion, Pinder remains a revered figure to fans of progressive and ambient music. His solo albums, The Promise and A Planet with One Mind, are still cited by electronic, meditative, and new age artists as foundational influences. To this day, as rock mutates in the digital age, his music still flows through playlists titled Stellar Drift, Celestial Journeys, or Meditative Mind. A quiet testament that when sound is honest and deep enough, it never grows old. Final years. Since the quiet lawsuit with his former Moody Blues bandmates in the mid-1990s, Mike Pinder all but vanished from the entertainment world. He didn't reunite with the band, didn't release new albums, and didn't give public interviews. But that didn't mean he stopped creating. Quite the opposite. In silence, Mike Pinder entered another chapter of his life, creating for himself and living as a true musical pilgrim. In a secluded home nestled among the pine trees of Northern California, he spent most of his time meditating, journaling, making music, and observing the world from a gentle distance. Close friends recalled that Pinder kept a modest home studio, where he would often record instrumental pieces, spoken-word meditations in his warm baritone, and sometimes simply the sounds of nature recorded from the forest behind his house. He was also a devoted father. His son, Daniel Pinder, once shared on a podcast that his father never spoke about his past glory as if it was something grand. To him, playing the piano in the morning by the window mattered more than anything that ever happened with the Moody Blues. For years, Mike was the one who drove his kids to school, taught them how to play instruments, and told bedtime stories about the cosmos, energy, and compassion in that singularly Pinder way. Though he no longer performed, Pinder continued to receive hundreds of letters from fans across the globe. Many wrote to say his music helped them through depression, loss, or simply brought them back to themselves. He rarely replied, but he kept the letters tucked into journals, occasionally rereading them as a quiet gesture of gratitude. In the age of social media, Pinder held firmly to a minimalist life. No Facebook, no YouTube, no Instagram. His only official website served more as a time capsule, a vault of music, notes, and heartfelt reflections on peace and universal consciousness. In one of his rare email replies to a fan, he once wrote, "Music is the bridge that connects us to something greater than ourselves. If a single note I ever played made someone feel calmer, I need nothing more." Mike Pinder passed away on April 24, 2024, at home, surrounded by family. He was 82. There was no public funeral, no media frenzy. But across the global music community, from loyal Moody Blues fans to young progressive rock musicians, from ambient and new age artists to meditation composers, tributes poured in. On fan forums, people reposted Melancholy Man as a farewell. On small stages, Mellotrons were brought out again to honor the keeper of cosmic sound. He departed the world exactly as he lived in it, quietly, but leaving behind a space no one else could fill. Mike Pinder was never someone the rock world could easily grasp. He didn't stand out for flamboyant performances, didn't create scandal to make headlines, and never dropped philosophical sound bites for attention. But it was precisely this quietness that made him extraordinary. An artist who never needed a pedestal to be remembered, because the music he made reached the deepest corners of the human soul. For over half a century, he wasn't just a master of the Mellotron. He turned the instrument into a symbol. He didn't just write songs. He built inner worlds out of sound, places where listeners could drift into meditation, memory, or simply sit in stillness with time. Within the Moody Blues, he was the bond that wove Eastern philosophy, metaphysics, and electronic technology into an artistic stream that defied the boundaries between classical and modern, between human and cosmic. Perhaps Mike Pinder didn't walk with the Moody Blues to the very end. Perhaps he stepped away at a moment when others might have chased the spotlight, but that choice never dimmed his legacy. On the contrary, it illuminated a quiet truth. Sometimes silence echoes louder than applause. He once wrote, "The best way to change the world is to change your inner world first." And his life, from the quiet boy at an old piano in Birmingham to the reclusive man among the California pines, was living proof of that belief. Mike Pinder is gone, but the melodies he left behind still hum gently through time. They don't need promotion. They don't need praise. All it takes is someone, alone at night, pressing play on Melancholy Man and feeling comforted. That alone is enough for him to live on. If you've been moved by Mike Pinder's story and love heartfelt journeys through music history, consider subscribing to the channel, turning on notifications, and sharing your thoughts below. Which of his songs touched you the most? Do you believe Mike Pinder's legacy is being forgotten? The story doesn't end here. We'll continue exploring the quiet, immortal souls of music. Thank you for joining us.